Well, it's been a few days since former Greenville County Sheriff Will Lewis was found guilty of misconduct of a public officer. He now sits behind bars after a judge sentenced him to 1 year in prison. And we were there throughout the duration of this 4-day trial and saw at times even the jury seemed to be confused about the difference between the charges at hand. At one point, they actually came out of the jury room to ask the judge whether or not they should be looking at the allegations or the law. And despite what some people are saying on social media, Lewis was found guilty of something different than having an affair. Fox Carolina's Kayla Convoy sat down with an attorney today, and she's here in studio. So, Kayla, he says this case is unique for several reasons.
Well, that's exactly right. It was clear this jury was dead set on coming up with a verdict on Thursday, the same day as closing arguments were wrapping up. So with the questions and all of the confusion floating around, we're breaking down this case step by step to explain exactly what Will Lewis is serving time for. From sitting next to his wife in a courtroom to sitting behind bars, it took just 5 hours for a group of 12 jurors to find former Greenville County Sheriff Will Lewis guilty.
Will Lewis stood accused of using Greenville County taxpayer money to create a position for this young woman and then further use taxpayer dollars to fund, in essence, the perfect environment to engage in an adulterous relationship with Miss Neighbors.
Lewis openly admitted to having the affair. From the beginning, he said it was consensual, but his former personal assistant, Savannah Neighbors, says otherwise. Either way, attorney Grant Varner says that wasn't why Lewis was facing charges.
He used taxpayer money to make sure that Miss Neighbors was close to him as frequently as possible and that he took her places to try and progress this behavior.
Lewis taking the stand to defend himself from the 2 charges he faced. One, a common law charge for misconduct in office. He was found not guilty, but the jury did find him guilty of misconduct of a public officer.
The common law charge carries no sentence. It's sentencing at the discretion of the judge, okay, which means the judge has a pretty wide area that he can sentence in without any reprimand on that or any second guessing. On the statutory charge, it carries up to 1 year and/or a fine, but it carries without question removal from office.
No one knows what went down in the jury room, but Varner says, breaking it down, he thinks it's clear. The jury's goal was to get Lewis out of the office, which is why they found him guilty of that charge and not the other. He says from start to finish, this was an odd trial. Some things that went on in that courtroom, almost unheard of.
That's the first time that I can recall a spouse being allowed to sit next to the defendant who's on trial. It was very intriguing to a number of attorneys in town that his wife was allowed to sit next to him and again, stand next to him during sentencing.
And we did learn that Lewis's attorney filed an appeal in this case, arguing the indictment and the statute are over vague. And the attorney we spoke to today tells us Lewis won't necessarily be locked up for the full year that he was sentenced. He could get out sooner than that for good behavior. And we do want to mention that we did also try reaching out to a number of jurors in this case, but none of them wish to comment at this time. Cody, back to you.
Kayla, thanks so much.